I like your orange shirt. It gives me a Nickelodeon vibe.
I was feeling the same thing earlier. I've got this one, and then I've got a green one that makes me look like I got slimed. And I was like, ooh.
There you go. I'm assuming you also were a fan of Nickelodeon in the 90s?
I was. I love me some Rugrats.
Yeah. Oh, God. Rugrats was not my show.
It was.
I watched Rugrats back in the day. I mean, I was more of like, Hey Arnold, all that, Kanan and Kel. I did watch Rugrats, but I was always rooting for the babies to fail when they had like the scheme that they were trying to pull against their parents. I don't know why. Like as early as like 4th or 5th grade, I was just watching like, I hope those damn babies get caught.
John, you were a villain and you didn't realize it. You were like the adult villain for Rugrats. No, I love me some Kenan and Kel and all that. If you weren't around for all that, you missed out on something delicious.
And you know what? Great segue. That brings us to the delicious recap. Our weekly recap of the wonderful sitcom, also from the 90s, Family Matters.
But wait, John, we have to introduce ourselves.
Oh, yeah, I forgot. Yeah. Oh, so I'm John Francois, and who are you?
Today, I am Baby Richie, also known as AJ Vandertutt, and the actors who played Baby Richie. But I'm Baby Richie because he only had one scene in this episode.
Did he? Oh, my God, I didn't notice.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, God, Baby Richie. He's not getting paid. He's getting taken advantage of because he's such a baby and he doesn't know what to do with money.
He doesn't. He's going to spend it all on Play-Doh.
You like to be referred to as AJ? Because I always refer to you as Andrew Vandertutt.
I always say AJ. John, you know me, so you can call me Andrew. But if you don't know me out there,
AJ it is, or else you're going to cut a bitch.
I might make you eat turnips.
Oh, God. Is that like a nasty Thanksgiving food?
Oh, I don't like them. And we're going to get into a discussion, John. Oh,
we are diving into season 1, episode 2, Two Income Family. That's spelled TWO. Original air date, September 29th, 1989. It was written by Robert Blair, directed by James O'Keefe. This episode seen by 21.1 million viewers.
It probably helped that that was when the day after my birthday, so the whole world was in celebration. So I was officially 1 year and 1 day old.
Andrew, did your parents ever tell you what you did for your first birthday? Because I would imagine that you don't remember.
I don't remember. I'm pretty sure that we did something involving an ice cream cake, and I just sat and watched because even as a baby, I didn't like cake.
Okay. I don't understand why. Cake is delicious as the delicious recap. But I remember my brother's birthday. My plumpy 1-year-old cute looking brother was just like, oh, what's going on? I'm being touched by these strange people. I don't know. He had that clueless, cute baby face that you will see in 1-year-olds a lot.
You know what the babies were thinking? They were like, the big ones, they're all happy and they keep screaming stuff. What is happening?
I know. It's insane. But to get back to our episode here, let's go to the fact that, as suggested in the opening theme sequence, we have our new Judy, Jaimee Foxworth. After a 1-episode try, Valerie Jones now kicked out as Judy Winslow, and thank God, because that doll dress-up thing that she was pulling off of the pilot episode, not working. Judy Winslow dresses more modern and more normally like the rest of the family. But, Andrew, did you notice that still in that first scene in the opening credit sequence where it's like the family like having dinner at the table, we still see the back of Valerie Jones as Judy Winslow?
Yes, she's officially labeled Shadow Judy. She's Shadow Julie because we don't see her face. But then all of a sudden, Valerie comes right on in and you're like, oh, hey, Valerie, you're here.
Jaimee Foxworth is the new Judy Winslow. Skin tone wise, she clearly looks like the rest of the family, because I think I had mentioned in the last episode that all the Winslow family, and I'm talking about Carl, Harriette, Eddie, Laura, they all have a similar dark skin tone. Jaimee Foxworth has a similar dark skin tone, so she actually looks like she came out of Harriette's hoo-ha-ha, and I just find that delightful. I hope I don't sound racist when I say that.
You don't. It provides continuity for the family, because again, nobody in that family, including Mother Winslow, has lighter skin. So it just didn't really fit as well to see baby doll Judy, Shadow Judy, and now regular Judy.
In the opening theme sequence from the pilot episode, it was Kelly Williams as Laura and Valerie Jones as Judy feeding the pigeons. But now, suddenly Jaimee Foxworth as Judy is feeding the pigeons. And I wonder, did it look to you like they digitally imposed Jaimee Foxworth where Valerie Jones was in that scene, or maybe they shot a completely new scene with Jaimee and Laura, or Jaimee and Kelly, the actresses, feeding those pigeons?
I think they reshot it. And the only reason why I think they reshot it, the lighting looks slightly different. Not majorly different, but it looks like maybe they shot it at a different hour of the day. But I was hoping it would be like superimposed and like really badly superimposed, but it wasn't.
It might have been brighter. It might have been a different park. I'm not really sure. We should note, though, we have our first guest star of Family Matters on this episode, actor Larry Block, who passed away back in 2012. He plays Mr. Seeger, Harriette's, I believe, manager, and the Hulu synopsis. The Winslows must cut costs when Harriette loses her job as an elevator operator. Now, we were talking about last week that Family Matters is a spinoff of Perfect Strangers, where we meet Harriette Winslow for the first time as an elevator operator. Andrew, before we get diving into this episode, overall thoughts you want to share?
When I first watched Family Matters, I watched as a kid and I never rewatched any of it. So this is my second time seeing this episode where I was like, whoa, I'm looking at this as a completely different lens. As a kid, I didn't understand the concept of having a job, having bills to pay, being a multi-income family. None of those terms made any sense to me. Now rewatching it, not only did I feel like the nostalgia, hey, this is what it was to go job hunting in the past, but also I got this little feeling of, oh, I'm a little anxious because I wonder what's going to happen to the family dynamic because losing a job is such a major thing.
Yeah, and you know what? Considering that it is a major stressful thing for a family to have an unemployed parent, the Winslows take it pretty well. I know it's a sitcom, but that's what I was thinking all throughout. I was like, wow, one, the subject of unemployment, only a second episode into this new sitcom, that they're really coming out swinging with that issue. And two, there's nobody really screaming or having an outburst or needing to take a walk to Canada like Carl wanted to do in that first episode. The family really does a good job of working together and saying, you know what? Yeah, this is a rough patch, but we'll be okay. We'll make it through. We've got each other. Our family matters.
I see what you did.
I know, I'm so brilliant, aren't I? So scene one. Judy is bothering Laura with math questions in the kitchen, and automatically, and I think I remember our first episode, Andrew, where we were talking about like the pilot episode set usually being cheaper and different from the sets in the rest of a television series. Did you notice? Brighter, grayer kitchen.
The Winslows got a tax refund or a write-off because that lighting, it's completely different. And that dining room table, I'm going to say the kitchen table that's kind of like the island, it is beautiful. I want one of those for my house now. From the first episode, it was hideous. The second episode, beautiful.
Let me tell you something. They better save every penny of that tax refund, because when you only have like one income from Carl right now that Harriette got laid off, I mean, come on now. Let's not joke about that tax refund.
Don't blow your rebate all on the table, people.
Did you notice Carl? He had like a little, it looked like someone took him to the barbershop and did maybe a little snip to his afro, but it looked like he was going in between dad that needs to still look professional enough for work, but is trying to keep up with the times. So it was like he was doing a dad version of a high top at the time. It wasn't working for me because, again, the bald spot, it's like, no, Carl. Frankly, later in the series, when he has pretty much a shaved head, that I love it. He has a great bald head, but when he tries to do like a little high top this early in the series, I don't know about that. What do you think, Andrew?
It was interesting. His haircut was literally exactly how my dad would get his haircut before he went completely bald. And then I'm looking at it, I was like, I feel like he either went to the police academy and got his haircut for free, or he went to Supercuts and they do not know how to cut a black person's hair there, and they messed him up.
So eventually Laura and Judy make an exit from the kitchen when it's discovered that their dad is there to pay bills. I mean, it's implied that, oh my God, dad is paying bills. He's not going to be in a good mood. Let's escape. Let's go to another room. And it looks like Mama Winslow coming into the kitchen. Laura and Judy warn Mama Winslow. Mama Winslow says, oh, okay, I can take my medication anytime. And then Rachel coming into the kitchen with Richie. And here we go. I think we're cueing a fat joke here. I think she's the one that says to Richie, oh, it's time to feed you, little boy. Carl focuses on his bills. And Carl thought that Rachel was talking to him. So he's like, oh, I already ate, Rachel. I already ate. And then Carl takes a break from bills to play with Richie. The baby smiles, frowns, then smiles again. I think this Joseph/Julius Wright playing Richie, whoever the acting coach is for this baby, good job, because he knew how to smile and frown on cue.
Yeah, that baby stole the scene. Baby Richie was a superstar.
Rachel asks if Carl is paying bills. Carl says yes. Rachel makes a run for it with Richie. Because so far we've seen Carl as like a goofy, fun, lovable, easygoing dad, it's really interesting how the family is like, gotta run. Dad is paying the bills. He's probably not going to be happy. But it's like, I haven't gotten the vibe from Carl so far that he would lose his crap over paying the bills. I mean, do you think he deserves that kind of fear?
I do. Whenever somebody sits down to pay bills specifically, I'm like, I am out of here because I don't want to see how you feel after all that money's gone.
So here's the thing. I mean, I know that Carl loses his crap a lot throughout Family Matters, but I guess it's in such a comical way that to me, it's just unfathomable that it's like, oh my God, Carl is seriously losing his crap to the point where it scares me. Like, I've always laughed at Reginald VelJohnson losing his crap as Carl, especially when Steve comes along.
Oh, yeah. His character and personality in general make it so you're not afraid of him. But he's the type of person, when he blows up, I guarantee it's nuclear.
So we have Eddie coming in with some turtlenecky blue t-shirt, tight-ass jeans, fitting to the times. And now I think we're right back to the tight-ass jeans, right? I mean, we're way past the 2000s era of baggy jeans that sag to your feet.
Mostly, yeah. I've seen some people still doing the sagging thing, but Eddie's wardrobe is eating. These first 2 episodes, I want his clothes.
Yeah. Oh, and oh God, especially the episode I recently watched. I think it was like episode 5. We'll get to that when we get to that. But I was like, wow, this wardrobe that Eddie's wearing is not befitting of the intelligence that he think he has. So we'll get to that when we get to that. But of course, because Eddie is a spoiled teenager, he asks his dad if he could have some new high tops. Carl tells Eddie the sneakers he's wearing now are still new, and Eddie puts his foot up on the table. I don't know about you, Andrew. I mean, I think my parents would not take too kindly to me putting my feet on the table.
In my house now, if you put your feet on my table, I'm breaking your ankles.
Fair enough, because that's where people eat. Do I want shoe dirt in my spinach? I don't think so.
Yeah, I don't want shoe dirt spinach. I mean, that's roughage.
I feel like a nickname that like a Bubba from your childhood would call you. Like, hey, shoe dirt spinach, come over here.
It sounds like the friend who always has pink eye.
So Eddie says he can't wear his current high tops anymore because they're from Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. That's in reference to the fact that the same year this episode was, 1989, that's when Kareem Abdul-Jabbar retired from the NBA. I guess I don't have the perspective of a teenager when it comes to sneakers, but I would figure that a freshly retired NBA player's shoes, I mean, wouldn't they still be valuable?
I mean, the shoe themselves would be valuable, but as far as like with other people who are into basketball, no, you might as well just retire those shoes along with him.
Damn, I didn't know you knew that much about basketball and their sneakers.
I don't know about the basketball portion. I know that you can get a field goal. Don't look that up. I don't know. I know that something happens in sports.
Okay, so the field goal goes down the court and then hits a ball out the park. I totally get what you mean.
Boom, hole in one.
Exactly. All right, so Eddie suggests that he should get some new Jordans, even though we saw him wear Jordans in the first episode. So what the hell happened to those Jordans?
Mm-hmm. I wonder, they probably got creased.
Carl says no. Eddie is like, come on, Dad. They're only $70. And this is where I had to do some Googling to see like what $70 in 1989 is compared to today. So $70 in 1989 is $173 in 2023. And I also found out that like Jordans today can average around $200. Maybe like $173. Is that, I mean, that technically is kind of a bargain, right?
Yeah, that's a little bit of a bargain. I mean, just hearing him say $70, I'm like, whoa, I remember when sneakers were $70. But even comparing it to today's prices, that would still be a super big steal.
Back when I was in like middle school and I gave a crap about what people thought about what I wore, I would probably beg my parents to pay for sneakers that price. But nowadays, I just don't care anymore about fashion. The recent sneakers I got, Walmart, I think I paid $20 for them. And they're like fake Pumas.
That's me. If I can get a pair of sneakers for less than $20, steal. I will throw them on. Now, when it comes to high heels, I've got an issue. But sneakers, boom.
Yeah, usually high heels, especially the good-looking ones, they're going to cost you a penny. All right, so Carl says he would not pay $70 for a pair of shoes if Lola Falana was in them. And I agree. Also, who the hell is Lola Falana? Let me look that up on the internet right now. She was an American singer. Right now she's 81. Her dancer, actress. I'm guessing she was just relevant back then. Did you know who Lola Falana was?
I did. She is beautiful. If there was somebody that could have turned me straight, if that was a thing, it would have been her.
Even now, as an 81-year-old, she might turn you straight?
No, that ship is sailed.
Fair enough. All right. So Carl holds his ground, tells Eddie no to new shoes, and Eddie becomes the usual dramatic teenager saying, "Thanks a lot, Dad. Freshman year is shot." And then we enter Harriette, who is asking how Carl's day was. And Carl complains that food is getting expensive and asking if there's more kids he doesn't know about. Harriette says, "I guess this isn't a good time to tell you. The car needs a tune-up." Carl says he'll try more of that tune-up in the can stuff. Harriette says she tried it and the car spit it back at her. So it's probably time for a new car. Question to you, Andrew. Did you ever tune up your car yourself? Did you ever use that tune up in a can stuff, or did you always send it to a mechanic?
I tuned up all my cars on my own. My dad taught me how to do it because he was like, we will not go to a mechanic shop. So I've always done it myself, and I've done the full oil change and all that stuff. I'm still afraid to this day to take my car to a shop and have somebody else do it.
Ironic, because that's what they are expert at. And again, I had to look up Google because I'm like, wait a minute. I never really knew what a tune-up was. And for you listening, if you don't know either, a tune-up, a maintenance procedure in which your mechanic will check and adjust all of your systems in your vehicle that affect its combustion process. If you want to keep your car in top-notch condition, running smoothly and avoiding breakdowns, you should schedule regular tune-ups with your mechanic. All right, so Harriette asked Carl about the pay increase at the police department. Carl says it already kicked in, and then asks Harriette if she can ask for a raise as an elevator operator.
Have you seen the movie Titanic?
I didn't pay attention to any part really other than the Kate Winslet naked scene.
Okay, that's not a good example. For anybody who has seen it, on Titanic, the guy who operates the elevator with the switch outside and closes the gate, that's what Harriette was doing.
Google tells me as an elevator operator, you may operate the elevator manually or using automatic controls. Your duties would include communicating with visitors, guests, residents to determine their floor and whether they need assistance with their luggage or packages. In 2023, the salary for an elevator operator, if there's still some, they typically range between 38 and 48 grand. Back in 1989, that was 15 to 25 grand. I mean, can you imagine making that low of an amount for a full-time living?
Imagine the people who are working now making minimum wage. That'd be like the thing. But I couldn't imagine doing that. But I have seen elevator operators in New York City. There's a few buildings that still have them. And I mean, I guess that's what they're getting paid, but I couldn't imagine living off of that.
New York City, one of the many ways they make money is through the hotel business. So I guess they have just enough money to spread around to people like elevator operators, storemen, etc. I was thinking to myself, okay, if Harriette got a raise, I don't know if it's going to make that much of a dent. I would think that maybe Carl would be making a lot of bank as a police officer in Chicago, of all places. I mean, I know my cousin in Connecticut, he makes pretty good money as a police officer. 2023 average salary for a police officer, $86K. In 1989, $34K. Holy crap. Okay, that's a big difference.
That's a huge difference. It's insane that now, me, I have my own feelings about the police, but when it comes to pay for doing your job, police put themselves in a lot of danger. I do feel that they should be paid way more. As a 911 operator, I made more than police officers out on the street, and it has always blown my mind to this day.
Yeah, that is insane. I agree with you on that. Wow. All right, so Carl tells Harriette she's the best elevator operator at the Chronicle. Harriette says she's the only elevator operator at the Chronicle, and this is the newspaper that Harriette works at in Chicago. Carl finally convinces Harriette to ask her boss, Mr. Seeger, for a raise. I just have a note, because Harriette's fashion, we're going to be commenting on this throughout the entire... She dresses very well for an elevator operator. Did you see this blue dress that she had on? It was like, oh, are you coming from church or are you coming from your... Because I would imagine that an elevator operator today would dress a lot more casually than Harriette dressed back then as an elevator operator.
I agree. She is channeling Chanel with that blue outfit. It is beautiful. There's like a Chanel, I'm not going to say knockoff because I don't think it's a knockoff, but I don't know if it's really Chanel, but the design is from one of their runways.
She looks like a hot, sassy spicy blueberry, and I'm here for it.
Blueberry me up. Take me up on the elevator of blueberries. I am down.
All right, so Harriette then asks Carl if he's almost done paying bills, and Carl says he just started. Harriette, without missing a beat, says, all right, I'm out of here. And then we go to scene 2. Carl is wearing an ocean blue button-down, and I felt like he was looking like a Caribbean man on vacation.
I agree. That was a total Hawaiian vacation shirt. As soon as I saw it, I was like, all I can think of is cruise people.
Eddie coming down from upstairs, asking Carl if mom is home, and Carl is asking why. Eddie, once again, not taking his dad's authority seriously by admitting he'd like to get her to take him to the mall so he can get the sneakers Carl told him he isn't going to get. Carl laughs and says it's not going to happen. Eddie claims that he's just going to look at them. Carl guilts him with a saying, once I was sad because I had no shoes until I met a man who had no feet. And I know that kind of saying all too well, Andrew, that kind of parental guilt of like, be grateful for what you have. There's some starving kids in Africa. Go eat these nasty mashed potatoes right now.
It is such a Black dad thing to say. And then as a kid, you're thinking, well, he's fine. He's not going to need shoes then, but I still need shoes.
And Eddie, of course, plays the oblivious, dumb teenager. He's asking if he's met this man. Carl buckles down again and says he's not getting the high tops for Eddie. Harriette comes in wearing the same blue dress. I would assume that this could be her regular elevator operator uniform.
Notice one thing, John, in that scene where Carl was reading a magazine as Eddie's talking to him, that the magazine fold flips sides when they cut back to Eddie. It is something I picked up in that scene, and I watched it 4 times to make sure I had the right thing.
Really? I didn't notice that.
I thought it was weird because I was just looking, I was like, the magazine looks different. And then I rewatched it and I'm like, oh. So I think they cut it in 2 scenes, or it was just cut awkwardly, but you never see Carl actually flip a page.
Okay, a little bit of continuity issue that the Family Matters producers thought we wouldn't notice, but Andrew Vandertunt noticed.
I got you.
All right, so Harriet's looking depressed. Carl is anxiously greeting her, asking how did work go today, and you can tell he's wondering if she got the raise. Harriette confirms that she did walk in and ask Mr. Seeger for a raise. Carl asks what happens. Harriette gives him what looks like a check and then depressingly walks into the kitchen. Carl follows her into the kitchen, pleading with her that what she gave him is a bonus. Harriette says that it's actually severance pay, and as of tomorrow, the Chronicle will have a new self-service elevator. Yeah, they're keeping up with the times, but darn it, Harriette doesn't have a job.
But it's so sad. But now, this is the one part in the episode where I assumed that this is why the family wasn't stressing as much as I thought they would. Maybe that severance check was enough to hold them over for a little bit, and things weren't as tight as we thought they would get. And that's the only reason why I think they weren't as stressed as what I thought they would be.
$5 million. I hope that's the severance pay.
Oh, I would never work again.
You would wisely save that money, spend it slowly so that you'll be good for the rest of your life.
Exactly. I'm investing it into Mars candy because everybody loves chocolate.
So Eddie then says, that's great, Mom. Your job will be a lot easier because, again, he's playing dumb teenager. He doesn't know that the severance pay means that Mom got fired. Carl does get the point, tells Eddie Mother was just fired. Eddie then asks, from her job? Is it me, or do they sometimes go a little bit over the top with how dumb Eddie is?
Sometimes they go a little over the top, but I could see Eddie asking that question.
Yeah, because like it kind of reminds me of like Joey from Friends, where like I love Friends. I like Joey. He had funny moments. But sometimes when you have that stock dumb character, the writers, they write him so dumb that you wonder, like, how does this person know how to get up out of bed and walk with 2 feet in front of them in the morning? Like, they just seem so dumb beyond belief.
They are channeling real people. I think Eddie was from 2020 and we just didn't realize it.
And then Carl sarcastically says, no, she got fired from a cannon. Mama Winslow tells Harriette that's terrible, and she thought the Chronicle liked her. Harriette says they do. That's why they didn't go self-service years ago, because they didn't have the heart to fire her. Ooh, well, that's a company that doesn't operate for the best of the company. They really take their employees' lives seriously, which can be a good thing, but also for the sake of the company, maybe a bad thing.
For growth-wise, bad thing. But that is nice to know that your employer at least wanted to keep you around so they weren't like terrible to you.
Yeah, it has like a mom and pop own business kind of quality to it. Mama Winslow asks what changed their mind. Harriette says, well, I could be wrong, but I think it was when I took Carl's advice, marched in like a fool, and asked for a raise. Mama Winslow looks at Carl and says, way to go, Carl.
I love Mama Winslow. She reads the room so well.
So Mama Winslow is like the sass of Harriette Winslow, except when Harriette is like 30 years older. Like, they just are the same kind of person when it comes to that snappy, funny attitude.
They really are. They hit so well and their timing is perfect.
Carl didn't do anything wrong. I think it is logical to ask for a raise if you've been working at a job at the same salary for a while. So Mama Winslow funny, but I think Carl was in the right.
Right.
And then enter Rachel, Laura, and Judy playing with each other, and Rachel noticing that Harriette looks down. Once she knows Harriette has been fired, Rachel tries to comfort her and says she can grab part-time work to help out with cash. Laura suggests selling Judy's toys, and Judy screams, "Mom!" Not liking the idea. And I wonder what those toys are that might be so valuable enough that you would sell them. What do you think they would be, Andrew?
I think Judy's got some like golden collectibles in her room. We never actually know what toy she has, but she is toy obsessed. Or you know who it could be? It could be Shadow Judy dressed as a doll and they want to sell it.
This actress that you only saw for one episode worth $25,000.
She's a little weird, but $25,000 you can sit her on your shelf, she'll look like a doll.
As you said in the last episode, she may talk like an anime character, but hey, she's valuable. All right, we go to the next scene in the kitchen. Rachel, Laura, Judy putting letters in envelopes. They have like a fold stuff seal routine that they're doing. It reminds me of a receptionist job that I recently had, Andrew, where, yeah, it's lovely to have an easy job like that. That makes decent money, but my God, monotonous, boring work. Folding envelopes, answering the phone the same way. I wouldn't recommend it.
I can't imagine that I would last long in that position at all. This scene, the beginning of it, it gave me like I Love Lucy, Three Stooges vibes. You know, they would get a job and there would be just these easy routines of things to do, but then it all goes awry.
Rachel is really wearing like a pink, black, and red bowler shirt. You know what? It kind of reminded me of like the fashion of another TJIF ABC sitcom that was kind of paired up with Family Matters on Friday nights, Boy Meets World, where the fashion of the teenagers on that show was tending it toward bowling shirts. So I think as we creeped onto the 90s, we saw like the bowling shirt button downs.
Yes. You know what? One of the things I thought of when I saw her shirt, I started watching Friends recently, and Chandler used to wear a lot of those bowling shirts.
Look like you are in a bowling league and you are going to get babes.
Oh, you are? You're a little hot piece of bowler.
Laura sarcastically is looking at the routine, the stuffing envelope routine that her and Judy and Rachel are doing, and she sarcastically says, "So this is the kind of work that's going to help save the family." Judy then asks a question about the envelope stuffing process that makes them realize they have to redo all of their hard work. And then we go to the living room, Andrew. Carl and Harriette come down the stairs. Harriette is wearing a fancy pink dress that reminds me of the odd pink favorite seat that Carl had in the pilot episode, the one in the living room that didn't match with any other part of the living room.
Yes. When I saw that, I was like, they repurposed the couch to make her outfit.
They were like, we're not going to use this pink couch at all. It's so ugly, but we don't want to throw it away. We want to save money. Let's rip all the fabric out of it and somehow make it into a dress.
Yes.
So Carl assures Harriette brightly that she will get a job today. He can feel it. Harriette says that's what he said all week. And she still doesn't have a job and reminds Carl that nobody is hiring elevator operators. Yep. I mean, it seems like something that's you and I could do. Hence why we have the self-service. Carl says, forget about being an elevator operator. And there's 1,000 jobs Harriette would be perfect for. Carl convinces her to put on that Harriette Winslow, I can't do anything smile. Harriette has a cute chuckle and smile. Carl says, who can resist that smile? Kisses her. Harriette feels moved and says, today's the day. I'm going to find me a job. And I almost hurt my neck doing that. So clearly Harriette has stronger head and neck muscles than I do.
Now you're going to give yourself whiplash doing it. But by the end of this first season, you're going to have it down with no pain.
If you could show me how to do the Harriette Winslow head neck sass, then I would be forever grateful.
I will learn it, and then we're doing it together.
It'll be like one of those TikTok videos that lasts like 3 seconds and then it'll go viral.
Yes.
Rachel, Laura, and Judy, they come into the living room. Rachel carries the stack of completely filled envelopes happily, saying that they got the first batch done. Rachel proudly says she has made the girls what she calls assistant encasement interplay specialists, which is, of course, a fancy way of saying they stuffed envelopes. And I literally had to look up on Google if that was a real term. Assistant encasement interlay specialist. And I can confirm with you, Andrew, that is not a real term.
It would sound great on a resume, though. Rachel was smart. So Judy has the funniest joke of the episode to me in this scene. Judy ate this episode, by the way. I think she was afraid that she was going to get shadow Judy, because when Laura says, you're supposed to use a sponge, Judy's like, yeah, but it didn't get the glue off my tongue. And I screamed. I thought it was the best joke of the episode. But then this also reminds me of a scene from Seinfeld where a character is licking envelopes and ends up dying because she ingests so much of the glue.
Whoa, can that actually happen?
I don't know. I have always wondered, but I've always been afraid to lick envelopes because I've heard that envelopes aren't stored in the most sterile place. And if you cut your tongue, you could get an infection.
Google says that when it comes to licking envelopes, it's recommended for users to wet the seal for closure with a moist sponge versus licking it, especially when there's a lot of envelopes to be sealed, because you get the risk of ingesting too much glue. And I've been licking irresponsibly, Andrew. I didn't know this. Well, no more envelope licking for me. I got to keep my tongue moist for other things.
Yes.
We'll leave it at that, or else my wife will kill me. Rachel tells Laura and Judy that they have to go down to correspondence delivery headquarters. There's Rachel again, using all those fancy words for no reason. Judy explains in plain English that they're just going to the post office. Look at this. I noticed them. They're going out the front door, and there's an actual exterior view. Remember that first episode when Mama Winslow came in from what was supposed to be the exterior outside of a Winslow household? And it was like a green-brown lobby area that looked like they were living in an apartment building or retirement home. No more. Now that Family Matters is going to become a series, the Winslows actually live in their own house where they can step out the door from the living room, and there's actually grass and trees and a sky, Andrew.
That was the first thing that I noticed when they showed the living room. I'm like, there's an outside to the house.
All right, so Rachel asked Carl if he would listen for baby Richie. Eddie is coming from upstairs. He's coming into the living room. He's trying to convince his dad again to get him the new high tops. You know, those persistent teenagers with their materialistic things that they want. And he's wearing a sleeved black t-shirt under a striped blue tank top, as one does.
It's totally 90s fashion. I used to have a shirt that had everything attached just like that.
Carl tells Eddie no again to the high tops and says if he wants to have the high tops, it'll have to be from his own money. And Eddie is like, what? I have to pay for shoes? And Eddie exclaims that by the time he saves up for the high tops, he'll be dead. That might be an exaggeration. I know he's only 15, but I mean, does it really take a teenager that long to save up $70, Andrew?
Now, based on what minimum wage was back then, it was, I think, about like $4 or $5. It would have taken him a very long time to get that money.
You're correct. We were not living in the days of where we live now, where I think minimum wage could be anywhere between $12 to $15 an hour, depending on where you live. So good point, Mr. Vanderton. And enter Harriette like a minute or two after she just left to go job hunting. That was very quick, I said to myself. Carl, fittingly enough, says, Harriette, back so soon? Harriette says the car broke down at the end of the block. Carl asks incredulously, wait, you left the car in the middle of the street? Harriette says, no, it left me on the street. And then I think there's a funny line coming up here. Carl casually tells Eddie, come on, son, let's push the car back home. Like, he just says it in a very casual way that I'm like, all right, yeah, of course, that's what you do. The car doesn't work. It's in the middle of the street. You just push it back home, Andrew.
Just gotta push it.
Carl tells Harriette to not worry about it. And then Harriette reveals that the car was on fire. Wow, that came out of nowhere. I don't know if you expected that line.
No, that escalated super fast. I'm like, on fire already?
Got to have those high stakes in sitcoms or else people are not laughing. It's very clear. I mean, that's a car they should have replaced long ago. If you're driving a car and like seconds into it, it just goes on fire, maybe time for a new car.
If your car is bursting in flames, yes.
All right, so now we go to scene 4. In the kitchen, Harriette comes into the whole family preparing dinner, I think. Again, Harriette exquisitely dressed. Harriette just never seems to have a moment where she's like in sweats. She's always dressing very finely.
Mm-hmm. I don't think athleisure was a big thing back then. It was kind of more like an intimate wear to be in sweatpants.
Or it could be possible that Jo Marie Payton had a voice on selecting Harriette's wardrobe. And maybe she was thinking in terms of like, oh, like there's going to be a studio audience. There's going to be people at home watching me. I got to dress up, rather than like, oh, what would a mother dress like in her casual home environment?
Yeah, I get it. I mean, I like her like initiative to dress the way she dresses. Because if that was me and I was a mom, sweatpants and t-shirts every single day.
I'm wearing sweatpants right now, by the way, Andrew. Stained sweatpants. So you know I'm already dressing up like fat, lazy dad, even though I'm not a dad yet.
Like, you're just working on it. You're preparing for the dad clothing.
All right, so Carl is asking Harriette if there was any luck in finding a job today. Harriette says nothing, but tomorrow is another day. Mama Winslow is saying, relax, do not worry. She made dinner. The family all goes to the table. Rachel assures Harriette that if she does not find a job, she can always help stuffing envelopes. Mama Winslow asking if she can say grace. Love this. A funny line from Mama Winslow's Grace. Give Harriette the strength she needs to go out looking for work every single day.
Her prayer was good.
Right? She was just stressing that Harriette was just not doing well. I think Mama Winslow continued with her prayer. Please bless Harriette with patience and understanding, Lord, as she's turned away from job after job after job.
She ate that scene. And you know what stole my attention and why I don't know what Harriette was wearing? Mama Winslow, when she said she made dinner, that cooking dish she had was so beautiful, I could not stop staring at it. I've been trying to find it online.
So can you describe the cooking dish? Because I didn't notice.
So it looks like it's made of glass or porcelain. It's got a flower pattern around it with the handles are like a gold inlay. And it looks like fine china. And I looked it up and it's a stew pot is what it's called, but it's vintage. I can't find any place that actually makes it to buy, but that thing is beautiful.
So Carl and Laura opening their eyes during Mama Winslow's prayer, like, what the hell is this woman saying? Carl cuts her off with an amen. Harriette is thanking Mama Winslow for making dinner. Mama Winslow proudly saying that the meal costs only $4.60. And I'm guessing this is a sign of the times, Andrew, because I'm thinking a $4.60 dinner. But nowadays, maybe that'll be like a little McDonald's burger. But back then, could you really get a decent meal for $4.60 for the whole family at a dinner table?
I don't think so, unless it was ramen noodles.
For that price, I'm thinking fast food, canned food, frozen food. Something tells me Mama Winslow didn't actually make this dinner herself if it's $4.60.
If something tells me it's going to give you diabetes or high blood pressure.
So Carl commends his mother for making dinner on a budget. Mama proudly owes her budget skills to living through the Great Depression. And Judy was asking what a depression is. And Mama stands up for some reason, feeling the need to make a speech about how bleak the Great Depression was with closing banks, no jobs, people having to live on practically nothing. Then Mama proceeds to scoop some nasty mush thing from the dinner pot, puts it on a plate, tells Eddie to pass this on to his father. I don't know about you, Andrew. When I looked at that mush, I was like, oh, that looks like $4.60 mush.
As soon as it hit the plate, all I thought of is, this is how cake looks to me.
Now, you said something about turnips being disgusting. I think that this is a turnip looking thing. Eddie looks disgusted, asks what the dinner is. Mama says it's mashed turnips and bacon. Yeah, there you go.
Mm-hmm. And you could have put a piece of cake in front of me and I would not be able to tell the difference between the two items.
Wow. Andrew, you comparing a lovely thing like cake to turnips, I will never understand that. That is interesting.
They're about the same thing to me. I looked at that and I was like, oh, that's vanilla cake.
I mean, it's okay to not like cake. I mean, my wife Tony doesn't like cake, but to compare to turnips, that might be an insult to my dignity.
It's okay, John. You're eating your turnip cake and I will watch.
I mean, especially when I want to be a dad someday, like pretty soon my body, my aura, everything about me is going to scream fat cake.
I will have respect for your cake choices.
So Eddie says incredulously at the mashed turnips and bacon, that ain't bacon. Mama says she used the drippings and can to make another meal out of this, which absolutely sounds disgusting. She says that's why they call this a depression dinner. Carl says, well, I'm depressed. Mama Winslow tells Carl there could be rough times ahead. Carl positively assures her that the rough time they're currently dealing with is only temporary. Mama Winslow says that that's what they said about the Depression, and it ended up lasting 10 years. 10 long years. And then World War II started. Harriette says she's not hungry and excuses herself from the table. Eddie anxiously uses that as an excuse to get away from the table too, so he does not have to eat that nasty mush. I do not blame you, Eddie. Carl immediately says, though, no, you sit back down. Rachel says she doesn't know why everybody's complaining. She always loves turnips. She scoops the food in her mouth and, as you can imagine, makes an over-the-top Lucille Ball, oh my God, what the hell am I eating kind of facial expression. And as she swallows, she says, maybe it was parsnips. Now, do you like parsnips, Andrew?
Now, I had to look up what a parsnip was. I have had parsnips, and the way I had them cooked, they were delicious. They were real good.
So I had to look it up. Parsnip, in case you listening don't know either, a long tapering cream-colored root with a sweet flavor. And when I try your parsnips, I'm going to cover it with cake just to disgust you.
Oh my gosh, John, make sure it's vanilla cake so I can look at it and judge.
All right, so Carl excuses himself from the table to check on Harriette on the back porch. He asks if she minds if he joins her, and Harriette depressingly says she doesn't know if she'll be in good company. Carl does not mind and sits down next to her to become that slightly annoying, toxic, positive person who's like, yeah, it's not hard finding a job every day, but, just don't give up hope. It's just that easy, right?
It was very Disney of him, and I love it. It fit in that scene while they were out there in that swinging chair, which every sitcom family has a swinging chair. I've never seen a family in real life have a swinging chair on a porch. But there's something about that scene. He's so positive, and it's like, wow, I really need him around when the world's ending.
So I'm happy to say that my wife, Tony, and I, as I told you privately, Andrew, we just got a house. We have not only a porch, but we have a swinging chair on our porch. The same kind of swinging porch chair that the Winslows have. And Tony is over the moon about that.
Oh, that sounds amazing.
There's going to be a lot of swinging happening on that porch, if you know what I mean. Sometimes you just got to accept that it sucks for your significant other to be unemployed and remind them that you're here to listen and help. That's just my personal advice to Carl in this moment when he just tries to be very cheery and silver lining and positive to Harriette. So I think that it can be easy to say, just keep hope alive when you're the one employed. You know what I mean? Like Carl has a salary. He's secure. He's good to go. Just imagine what it's like for the other person. And say if my wife, Tony, were unemployed, I'd be like, all right, that sucks. If you need me to help you out with applying, if you need me just to listen to your event, I'm here. Sometimes I feel like that might be the best way to go. That's just me.
I agree. Sometimes you just have to feel those nasty emotions. Sometimes you have to eat your turnips. And it's not going to be enjoyable, but it's okay to let somebody experience that.
You have to eat your turnips to get to the point where you eat your parsnips.
Exactly.
We learned something today. Harriette tells Carl maybe his mother's right and that it'll get worse before it gets better. She's defeated because she has limited experience as an elevator operator. Carl tells Harriette that's not true, reminding her that she's worked in the police department years ago. And this is where I kind of got confused about Harriette's history. Harriette says that it was only for a few months that she worked in the police department before she got pregnant with Eddie. Now I'm thinking to myself, like, okay, Carl and Harriette, did they work together for a brief period of time? Is that what happened?
That's what I was wondering too. I'm like, did they work together? Is this how they met? Like, I was confused on that little bit of the timeline there.
Did she operate an elevator in the police department? Maybe that's what she did.
You never hit the evidence room. You got to be able to get to it.
Let me tell you something. A police department elevator operator, that's no joke because there could be many gunshots going toward that elevator.
Yes. Have you seen Law and Order? The elevator is a dangerous place of a police department.
There you go. I have not seen Law and Order, but I'm going to see it just for those elevator gunshots. So the time that Harriette worked with Carl in the police department, Carl remembers that being a very intense period of time where Harriette had morning sickness constantly while she was pregnant with Eddie, and reminding Harriette that, hey, those were some tough times. If we can get through those times, we can get through now. Harriette says that she doesn't know about all this and she just may have to take whatever she can get. Carl refuses to hear that. Harriette says that they need the money. Carl asks if there are any jobs she might find exciting. Harriette mentions that when Mr. Seeger was firing her, she noticed a security job opening at the Chronicle. Carl says, oh, there you go. That's something, honey. You can do that. You graduated from the police academy. And Andrew, this is where I become further confused. I'm like, all right, so she graduated from the police academy and she ended up being an elevator operator while her husband was the one who was the police officer.
That's what I think is being implied here. Now, for this, because I was a little confused myself, so I had to go back. And I was like, okay, when my parents were both in the military, they were not allowed to be deployed together if it was a situation where they could be killed because, you know, they at least want to have one parent still alive within the family. So I was like, maybe that was the case back then with police departments. So maybe she had to go through the academy. She was going to become an officer, but then they're like, wait, the two of you are spouses. So one of you has to be on like desk duty, which would be clerical work, which would keep you safer. That's kind of what I was thinking is what was implied there. But then the other side of it for me, I'm like, wait, if she went through the police academy, she should just be a police officer. Why would you take a clerical job? I just didn't get the change there.
Yeah, I mean, if she was the one that had to make the sacrifice for the sake of having one parent there for the kids, maybe a safer version of a police officer, mall security, a sheriff of some kind. So she says in this scene that she needs security management experience to do this security job thing that she's talking about. Carl assures her that all she has to do is show her employer who she really is, and they will want her. Harriette says, "You think so, Carl?" Carl says, "I did. You're the best thing that's happened to me." And then there's the melodramatic sitcom serious message music that plays. Audience awes as Harriette buys what Carl is saying and says he should have gone into sales. Carl is acting suave when he says, "Hey, when you've got a great product, it sells itself." They go in for another kiss. Harriette says, "Thanks, honey," as they embrace each other on their crooked porch swing. While it's great to have a back porch swing, this particular one was crooked to their left.
I did not notice that. I'm going to have to watch it again.
Imagine embracing with your significant other on that swing, and then let's pray for the person that's on the left where the crooked part is, because looks like they'll be paralyzed as they try to be made love to.
Okay, that sounds like risky sexual behavior, and that is quite a fun thing.
So we go to scene 5, Mr. Seeger's office. We see him. He's working on papers in his office, looking busy. He hears a knock at his door. He says, "Come on in." In comes Harriette with a flight attendant looking outfit.
Very like Pan Am, except it was like a red flattish color top with some white inlay and then this black dress, I think, which it looked cute, but I got flight attendant right away as soon as I saw it.
So Mr. Seeger is glad to see Harriette back at the Chronicle. Harriette says, "Glad to see the new self-service elevator is working." Seeger happily agrees and says it should have been put in years ago. Seeger notices Harriette reacting awkwardly because, that of course means that she doesn't have a job, and assures her that he did not mean it the way it sounded. Harriette politely says she didn't hear it the way it sounded. Seeger says he's in the middle of interviewing for assistant director of security. Harriette says she knows because she's his next interview. Seeger says, "Harriette, it's a management position," as if Harriette's not capable. Harriette says she knows. She reads the description and she thinks she can handle the job. Seeger is like, "Okay, well, do you have a resume?" Harriette says, "Oh yeah, typed it myself," as she gives it to Seeger, and he says, "That's nice," in a way where it's like, "Oh, does this woman know what she's doing?" So Seeger looks over the resume and notices amazingly that she worked at the police academy, but then steps back and says, "But it was a clerical job." But Harriette reminds him that she graduated from the police academy. I would imagine that the police academy costs a lot of money, Andrew. She has to put it to good use somewhere.
If she had to pay for stuff, and I mean, you get pepper sprayed. And I don't know if they had tasers back then, but you would get tased too. So I would tell everybody I went through that.
I feel like this is kind of an example of like, oh, you got to go to college to get the job of your dreams. Say you get a degree as a doctor, but you can't find a job as a doctor. So you end up working at like Walmart. Like, I feel like this is kind of a similar example where it's like, whoa, Harriette worked her ass off at the police academy. She graduated and then she becomes an elevator operator for a newspaper.
It reminds me of my college experience. I went through college to get a degree in art history and have not been able to use that thing anywhere.
And I had a theater degree, and maybe like for a hot minute, I tried auditioning professionally to be an actor, but I just ended up doing a series of odd jobs, data entry, ticket salesperson. And then I just settled on radio, which not really quite theater, but whatever. I still can theatrically give you a conversation on the air.
You're giving us airwaves theater.
Back to the scene. Seeger is not impressed and says this is not the right job for Harriette, and if something comes up, he'll give her a call. Harriette looks defeated and begins to walk out the door as Mr. Seeger asks her to send the next applicant in, but then Harriette has a moment to turn around. Harriette tries to convince Seeger that she can do the job. Seeger still isn't convinced and tells her the job requires management experience. And Harriette's like, "Oh, really?" and explains how she has management experience coming out of her ears. She works at the Chronicle full-time. She's a full-time mother. She's managing a home, a budget, a family, a job, by the way, raising the family. This is a job that you cannot ever get sick for. You cannot get a raise. You cannot get overtime. And if Mr. Seeger wants references, he can ask Harriette's children, according to Harriette herself. And she walks out of the office with that sass, that expected audience applause. What did you think of that moment, Andrew, when Harriette told Mr. Seeger off?
Very happy, very satisfying. Now, this moment, as soon as he said, "Can you send in the other applicant?" my blood boiled. I would be so angry if somebody said that to me after telling me that I'm not qualified for a job. I would flip out in the room. So I was totally on Harriette's side because that was so insulting.
Yeah, because she did quite a speech. So when you take a lot of effort, creating a moving speech like that, I would imagine that you would want to be rewarded for your efforts. Now, look, here's what I thought during the speech. I was kind of cynically thinking like, in reality, employers are not going to find parenting experience to be equal to working in the job that they're trying to hire for, like specifically security management. And also, I mean, if we want to be even more cynically realistic, there is kind of a conflict of interest asking your children to be references, asking anybody in your family to be references, because it's like, well, yeah, they're your family. So they're going to say good things about you because partially you're going to tell them to say good things about you. But for a sitcom purpose, because Jo Marie Payton is a great actress and sells that speech well, I will say the way she delivered that speech was very effective.
100% agree.
Scene 6. Harriette coming back to home. Carl responds coming into the living room with a stringy, hefty 1951 basketball sweater. Kind of gave me like And One clothes vibes. Remember the And One clothing line?
I do. I remember their clothing line and their basketball commercials.
I guess I found it something that Carl wouldn't be wearing. Maybe it was like, oh, let's try to make Carl like the sort of hip dad. And I guess it suggested that he played basketball back in his day. Maybe he was an energetic young basketball playing kid back in 1951.
Maybe he was. I mean, that sweater was cute, so I would wear it today. Back then, it kind of just gave like this weird, like, I'm the cool dad.
And I love the strings because it kind of reminds me of like the hoodies that I would have with those strings right by the hood, because anytime the hoodie would come out of the laundry, one string would be pulled out long and the other string would be like so far up into the hoodie. And I always have to like rearrange the strings.
People will never know the struggle of that these days now that they started putting a stitch in the center of the hood. But I would have to do that same thing all the time.
String struggle is what we should call it.
Ooh, string struggle.
I don't. You think of it as a sexual thing. I just think of it as like, oh, no, the struggle of the strings. All right. So Carl says, Harriette, you've been gone 5 hours. And I don't know. I was just amused by the fact that Carl exactly knew how long she was out in the pre-GPS tracking era. Like right now on my phone, I have the Life 360 GPS tracking app that my wife, Tony, recommended. Just so like, oh, you can see when someone's coming on their way home. I mean, I guess Carl was just keeping track of the clock for 5 hours.
He was just sitting around just watching, which this makes me wonder, Carl, why didn't you go to work today? You should have been at work while Harriette was looking for a job.
Right? It seems like his job is to worry about Harriette finding a job instead of, I don't know, actually protecting the community as a police officer.
Right?
All right, so Harriette tells Carl she told Mr. Seeger how qualified she was for the job, and Carl happily assumes that means Harriette got the job, and Harriette says, nope, I just told him off. Carl asks, that took 5 hours? And Harriette says, nope, just a minute, but I treated myself to a double feature. I just find that an odd way to celebrate a moving speech that you give to your boss as to why you should have a job. Like, yeah, let me just sit in a theater for many, many hours watching 2 movies back to back. Like for me, it would be like, oh, I would go out for a drink. I would, socialize with a friend. I would have sex with somebody. Oh, let me just sit quietly in this theater and watch 2 movies.
So I can relate because I've done that. I was working a terrible job in 2012. It was worst place I ever worked, shady shipping company. And I quit because I got so mad that I cursed out my supervisor. And I went and I watched the Lord of the Rings movie. They showed the second and third 2 times because they were showing the extended edition at Tinseltown, which was a movie theater. I was so relieved. And it just gave me a moment to just think like, oh my God, what am I going to tell my roommates that I literally just quit my job because I was angry?
Wow. That is a day, because I remember watching the third Lord of the Rings movie at home. That took an entire morning. Me and my sister watching that. That was a long movie.
It's long. It's 4 hours. It is long.
Anyway, Eddie comes down the stairs to greet Mom and Dad and tells Dad Carl that he saved $70 from working overtime at the supermarket. Carl says, well, good for you, son. Now you can buy those high tops. And Eddie says, no, he was thinking about the guy with no feet and that he'll give the money to help pay bills instead. Aww. Surprisingly, Carl happily takes his money. I found that was an interesting thing that he accepted the money, because usually, at least my parents, I don't know about your parents, Andrew, they were the type that didn't like to be treated as charity cases. And, if I'm the one as a kid making money, they're like, no, you keep the money. Don't worry about it. I don't know if your parents were the same way.
Oh, no, my parents are cheap as hell. My dad he would have taken that money in a heartbeat.
I wouldn't think that $70 makes that much of a difference in paying bills, but made a big enough difference in 1989.
And trying to think, is any bill that I have now that's $70 by itself would cover? And I don't think there is.
Well, nowadays, I mean, some phone bills can go for $70. So Rachel comes in with groceries, happily greeting and congratulating Harriette, assuming she got the job. Rachel then goes on about using the envelope money to buy the family a big celebration dinner. And then she just keeps talking and talking and talking as she goes into the kitchen. Rachel tells Laura and Judy to put the turnips away. Yeah, those nasty ass turnips, because the family is having steak tonight for dinner. Laura asks, what happened? You hit a cow on the highway? The rarity of seeing a cow on the highway. I mean, unless you're from where I'm from, Vermont. I mean, in Chicago, too, cows on the highway in Chicago. Oh, yeah, that's definitely common.
Yeah, that's one of those things I'm like, I know in Texas I would see that, not in Chicago.
Yeah, I mean, I know Laura's joking, but still, it was just like, okay, that's a reach.
I have a question. Rachel was able to buy all of this food from that envelope money. How much money is she making doing that? That seems pretty lucrative because she had a lot of stuff.
$70 an hour? I don't know.
$70 per envelope.
If you're stuffing envelopes and potentially ruining your tongue to the point where it might have to be replaced, then I would imagine it'd be a lot of money stuffing envelopes.
I could see that. I'm risking my tongue, a fun organ. So yes.
One of the many fun organs, Andrew. One of the many fun organs. Rachel says, oh, your mother got a new job at the Chronicle. All three are joyous. Laura and Judy hug Harriette. Harriette is a little startled, saying she appreciates the enthusiasm, but admitted that she did not get the job. Rachel was like, whoa, you did it? Judy says, well, back to the turnips. Judy sounding like a very grown-up depression child. Well, back to the sawmill to inhale asbestos for 17 hours a day, working at $1 an hour to help mom with those bills.
Child labor is not funny.
It is really not. But sometimes when you're in the thick of it, you gotta laugh.
Yeah, you just have to. Judy is very, very well adapted to trauma from what I'm picking up in this episode.
I mean, why not? I mean, she had to endure the trauma of going up the stairs and never coming back.
Shadow Judy got her. Shadow Judy is going to be the basis of my conspiracy theory.
Literally, this is going to be a running joke, the whole Judy and the stairs thing, because I think it was later on in a few episodes from now where Judy goes up the stairs and I'm just like thinking like, well, I hope she comes back.
Like, uh-oh, it's the stairs. Dun, dun, dun.
Rachel says, I cannot believe you did not get the job, Harriette, especially after all the nice things he said about you today. Harriette is like, wait. You talked to Mr. Seeger today, Rachel? Rachel casually says, yeah, he called about an hour ago. Harriette anxiously asks, what did Mr. Seeger say? Rachel mentioned he was impressed by a speech she made and that he hopes she can start on Monday. Harriette is eager to give him a call really quickly on a wall phone, indicating that this was before we had to use area code when dialing a phone number, because I was noticing the amount of times that Harriette was pressing those phone buttons, and I was like, oh yeah, those are the days when you just had to dial 742-2252.
Yes, area codes, you didn't need them for those local calls. You could just dial and be, boom, connected.
Mama Winslow comes in wondering what's all the fuss about. Carl says, we don't know. Harriette got the job or she didn't. Mama Winslow plainly says, those would be the choices.
Great moment.
Harriette is on the phone with Mr. Seeger asking if he called earlier. She keeps saying, because I've seen so many sitcoms, it's very clear Harriette is about to surprise us with good news when she gets off the phone, because she starts with that sullen look like she's about to give bad news. But no, she's like, oh yeah, I got the job. And there's hugs all over the family. Harriette thanks everybody for pitching in and doing their part. Rachel then instructs everyone to chip in to help make the celebration dinner.
A huge amount of dinner is what they're going to make. I cried at the scene. Like, I'm a big crier when it comes to television. So as soon as Harriette celebrated, I burst into tears crying. But I was happy.
Especially like when the children are involved, like, oh my God, mom got a job. Blah, 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 blah. I think today's family dynamic, there would be a sort of divide where maybe the person who got the job is the only one that's really excited while everybody else is just like, okay. And they just kind of off to their own thing on their phones. Family Matters had a way of just showing us back then that like the family can come together, celebrate each other's successes, make dinner, just spend that kind of quality time together. I mean, it's nice.
It really is. I mean, some of the best times I can think were celebrating with food with my family. So it gave me that nostalgic moment.
All right, so Harriette takes Carl into the living room, and you're thinking she's going to give him a little something for being such a good husband. Harriette closes the sliding kitchen door and lays a terrible suck his face French kiss on him as the audience woos. I don't know if you thought this kiss was good. I thought, like, they're trying to make this happen. It's not happening.
So this kiss gave me two reactions. One, either Carl is not a good kisser, so Harriette was just like, let me take charge before he opens his mouth. Or they were going to do it, but they're like, how do we sneak this in with the kids in the kitchen?
And I would imagine that maybe Joe Marie Payton and Reginald Bell Johnson didn't feel the need to rehearse this during rehearsal because they're like, oh, we're grown-ups, we can make it happen. Or maybe they did. Maybe they had it in rehearsal and they just kept on being terrible. And the producers were just like, all right, fuck it. We'll just have it be terrible. It's a brief moment. Or maybe it was good in rehearsal. Maybe it was good sucky, sucky face. And the producers were like, oh, calm down. And then they just ended up having a clumsy kiss for the audience. It probably would be awkward if it was a really, really good kiss because it is a family sitcom. It's like, oh, yeah, I don't know if we want to see the parents sucking face as if they're about to, screw each other's brains out.
I get where it's like the family-friendly kiss, but then I look at it, I'm like, how do we think all those kids got there? They weren't just pecking each other.
So Carl is asking what that big, sloppy, terrible kiss was for. Harriette says it was to thank him for believing in her. Carl says it's the least he could do after Harriette encouraged him to take his sergeant's exam when he thought he couldn't do it, and cue that melodramatic music that we love so much, Andrew. And Carl not only took that exam, but he aced that sucker after 5 tries. Carl and Harriette, they hug. Melodramatic music builds to a crescendo as the credits come up, and Carl gives Harriette an awkward side lip kiss. Did you catch that side lip kiss? Like, what the fuck was that side lip kiss?
Like a fist bump kiss. She was like, mwah.
Yeah, I guess we should try to act like we're husband and wife by kissing again, but it seemed like a kiss that maybe Harriette wasn't ready for.
Yes, their kissing throughout the first 2 episodes have made me feel like y'all don't like each other.
And then that's it. What I commend about Family Matters is that even though we're not getting the Steve Urkel laughy, laugh, laugh hijinks yet, you get a nice mixture of comfort and love and enough comedy from this family where it's like, all right, I think I want to see another episode.
Yes, it's definitely giving me a lot more fun than I know I had when Steve Urkel joins the cast.
I'm definitely surprised by how much I'm liking this show pre-Steve Urkel. And for you listening, if you have any thoughts, concerns, questions, comments about what you've heard today, feel free to email us. We are at thedeliciousrecap@gmail.com. The Delicious Recap, spelled exactly how it sounds, at gmail.com. Please subscribe, rate, and review us wherever you listen to your fine podcasts. And then we're on Instagram and TikTok at Delicious Recap Podcast. And I got to make an edit here without Andrew because I totally forgot to say this at the time we were recording. Next episode, hopefully you can join us. We will be recapping season 1, episode 3 called Short Story, original air date October 6, 1989. Let deliciousness ring.